Hi everyone, Leah here from EurekaCrystalBeads.com with another fun beading video for you. Before I get started, take a look at our channel, and if you like what you see, hit that subscribe button and notification bell. You'll always know when we're posting new content. Today's project is actually going to be another stitch tutorial, and if you're familiar with our channel, you know that we have a lot of great stitch tutorials that aren't exactly a project, but rather a technique that you can then utilize in many different forms to create many different projects. So this is yet another one. This is called a double spiral. And on our channel, we have a stitch tutorial as well as different projects that utilize a regular spiral rope, but now we're going to learn how to do a double spiral rope, which just has that much more beautiful texture to it. So let me get started showing you what I'm going to be using. First and foremost, I'm going to be using 6-pound fireline here. I'm using smoke mainly because I want to make sure it shows up on camera best, but whether it's smoke or crystal or a wildfire, use whatever works best for your project, but I'm using that about 6-pound size. I have a size 12 needle here. Now, depending on the beads you use, you may be able to get away with a size 10 needle. The problem with thicker lines or thicker needles is that we're going to have these core beads here and we're going to end up going back through them quite a few times. So I like to err on the side of caution and I use a thinner needle here. As far as my beads, I have, as I mentioned, my core beads. Now, these are going to be the beads that are inside the spiral. You will see them a bit, but they're going to be sort of the structure of the spiral. It's what it's built off of. And I'm using a Mayuki size 8 in a silver color here. Now for this double spiral, I do recommend using a size 8 and not a size 11, like you could use in a regular single spiral, because in a single spiral, you don't have to go back through those core beads as many times as a double spiral. Hence the name. You will actually have to go through them double the amount of times in a double spiral. So size 8 is going to make things a little bit easier for you. Next, I have a couple of colors of size 11 seed beads. These are going to be my outer beads. I can use whatever sizes I want here. I could go even smaller if I wanted. These are just going to get a single pass of fireline through it. So you can use 15s, you could use Charlottes if you wanted something really dainty looking. You could go even bigger if you wanted, but size 11s I think are great, especially if you're learning the stitch. I have two different colors because this is a double spiral. I'm going to have two different spiral aspects to this, this stitch. So I have one color for each one. And then I have these really wonderful check 2mm faceted fire polish, those True 2 beads, which I really love because I think the faceting on them is absolutely gorgeous. So I'm going to feature them here and I'm going to use them as an accent bead in both loops because I think they're going to make a really striking combination and I just think they're beautiful to use. So let's get started. All right, I have my fire line strung up on my needle here. As far as how much to use, I wouldn't stress about that ahead of time. Just know that spiral ropes eat up a lot of fire line, and more so with a double spiral. So just expect that you will have to add on thread if you're doing any kind of a project with a double spiral, and simply work with an amount that you feel comfortable with. So I'm going to start by picking up 4 of my core beads. Now, this number can vary. All of the numbers can vary. And this is something really great about spiral ropes, and in this case, the double spiral, is that you can get a lot of different looks and a lot of different texture by playing with the amounts of beads that you pick up. But we're going to start this one with 4 core beads. And now I'm going to pick up, I'm just going to slide this to the very end. Leave enough fire line that you could weave it in later. I'm going to slide this to the end, and I personally like to work my spirals so my working thread here is always kind of pointing out and away from me. I find that to be the most helpful. So now I'm going to pick up what I want my first little outer loop to be, and I'll use black for this one. I'm just going to pick up a few of these beads. I'll pick up a little 2mm fire polish and a few more of these. Now I'm going to go up through all 4 core beads. So my thread, my working thread and my needle are coming out of the same side of that little grouping of beads and they're pointing away from me. You get that little loop on the outside. Now, if this was a single spiral, I'd be moving on to the next step, which was to start the next little step that creates more of the spiral. But in this case, this is a double spiral, so I'm going to pick up the beads for the other side. Oops, one too many on there. There we go. And I'm going to go up through those same 4 core beads, just like that. Now I'm going to encourage one to sit on one side and one to sit on the other side. And this is really important because what side they're on makes a difference in this becoming a spiral. Now, we're going to call this our step A. We just completed step A. And the thing with regular spiral and double spiral is I like to think of it as they're made up of step A and step B. Once you do your step A, which is sort of your starting step, you're never going to do it again. Everything from now on will be step B over and over and over again. So now let's do a step B to show you how our spiral will grow. Okay, so each time we do a step B, our spiral is going to grow by the length of one new core bead. And once you get into a really great rhythm, I really love spirals because I think that they can work up rather fast and they become rather mindless. And I love stitches like that. So our step B is going to be to pick up one new core bead. And then I'm going to start by picking up these beads here. So we have our 3 black, our little true 2, and our 3 black. And we're always going to ignore the bottom core beads, and we're going to go up through the top 4 core beads. Now you might be saying, well, you have 4 there, but remember, we picked up a new core bead. So you're going to slide your beads all the way down, just like this, and you're going to notice that we have that new top core bead right there. So we're going to ignore the core bead at the very bottom and go up through the top 4 core beads. And now every time we do a step B, we're going to have one more core bead at the bottom that we're ignoring. Right now, we've just added one new core bead, so we only have the one new one right there. I'm going to go up through the top 3 core beads, or the top 4 core beads, because we're going to be going through this one as well. And we go right up through here. And what you're going to see happen is that that new core bead is now going to sit straight in line with the rest of our core. I like to sometimes pull down against it to tighten it up. And you're also going to see that this loop sits ever so slightly higher than this loop, because if you compare where the little true 2mm fire polish is, it sits one little bump higher. That's the spiral starting. Now we're going to do the same thing on the other side, but we're not going to pick up another core bead. This is all part of our step B. We're not going to pick up another core bead because we're going to use the new core bead that's already there that we just picked up. They're going to share that core bead. So I'm just going to need to pick up my outer beads, just like that. And now what we're going to do is we're going to flip this like that. So now it's like we're looking at what we were before, only it's on this side. Now I'm going to go through my top 4 core beads. So again, we're ignoring the one at the bottom. We're going up through whatever the top 4 is, so that includes that new one. We're going to go right up through there. And if things start to loosen up a little bit as you're holding them right now, don't worry about it. Things will tighten up as we go. And you're going to make sure this is kind of on the front there. You're going to give it a nice little tug. You're going to notice that this one now as well has that next loop, and it sits one bump higher. So it sits higher about the length of that new core bead. And again, if you look at where the little 2mm True 2 fire polish are sitting, you can see that they sit one higher than the other. So that was a step B. You're going to want to make sure that your loops don't cross back over where they were, because that's going to affect your spiral. So now I'm going to turn back, so my little dark side here, my black side, is on my right again. And now we're back to the beginning of step B. So now we do need a new core bead. We're going to pick up the outer beads, just like this. I'm going to get these all the way down. And we're going to see that that new core bead we just picked up is going to be part of the top 4 that we go through. So now there's going to be 2 core beads at the bottom that we ignore, and really truly do ignore them. Only pay attention to whatever the top 4 core beads are. And again, the top 4 includes the new one that you just picked up. So we're going to go through the top 4 here. If that other one starts to slip, we bump it back in place. When you close your loop, make sure they continue to be on the front, just like that. So now we can see that there's 3 in a row, each one sitting a little higher than the last. I like to give it a good tug against the core. You can see our new top core bead where we're coming out of is sitting nicely in line. And now we're going to turn it back this way. So our gold side is on the right. Now we don't need to pick up another core bead because we're going to share the same core bead that's there. So we just have to pick up our outer beads. Just like that. Again, we're going to go through our top 4 core beads, our top 4 core beads. And you can see now how the core area is where you're going to have a lot of passes. So having a size 8 seed bead there is going to make your life a lot easier than if you tried to do this with an 11. Okay, so we've gone up our top 4 core beads. When you bring this down, oops, try not to get tangled. When you bring this down, again, just make sure that your loop, as you bring it down, isn't getting caught on anything, and it's staying now on the front of the previous gold loop. And that one now as well has 3 loops. Now you're going to turn with your black side back on the right or left, however you tend to work, just stay consistent. And I'm going to repeat the same thing all over again. So I would start by picking up a new core bead and then the little outer section here, the 3 black beads, the fire polish and the 3 black beads, go up my top 4, bring it to the other side, do the same thing on the gold, just not needing a new core bead because it's going to share it. So I'm going to get a little bit more of this done so you can see a bit more of it worked up, and I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so here's what we have after I've done about an inch or so of our double spiral. And you can see how absolutely lush this is. And I think it's lush for a couple of reasons. First of all, because of the beautiful density of the actual stitch of the double spiral, but also using these beautiful metallics, using these true to 2mm fire polish, I think this adds just such a luxurious feel. Now, a couple of notes here. Things will start to get very tight in that core, which is why I stressed using a size 12 needle to be helpful, and using size 8 seed beads as the core. You're really not going to be able to get away with using 11s there. Now, it is very tight. If you find that this is too frustrating for you because of all the kind of the digging in that you have to do into that core, you can easily change that core bead to a size 6. So if you love the look of having the size 8, give it a shot. Maybe it won't bother you. But it is a little bit of a chore sometimes to dig in your needle and then angle up. And like I said, if that's not something you want to stick with, it's totally doable, as you can see. But if that's not something you want to stick with, just change it over to a size 6 for your core bead, and it will go that much easier. You will have a little bit of a bigger look, but that's totally okay. Another thing you can do is you can play with those outer beads. So as you know, I did 3 11s, a little accent bead, and 3 11s, and this is what it gives you. If you want a look that's bigger and lacier and drapier, you can just create these little outer sections here to be longer in length, so that way they bubble out more. So you have so many wonderful options with this stitch to not only make it easier for yourself, or to give yourself a lot of different looks. But as you can see, using the size 8 as the core, completely possible, absolutely beautiful, very substantial, very luxurious, and yeah, there's a lot of fun you can have with it and a lot of options you can play with. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Make sure to visit us on over at eurekacrystalbeads.com for everything that I used in this video. And we certainly have a lot of amazing bead options so you can make your double spiral look exactly how you'd like. All right, see you next time.